Hello everyone. This is the Type Explorations assignment for Advanced Paragraph Indicators. We're focusing on using capitals, weight, typeface, and point size to show a new paragraph. So similar to previous explorations, what you are attempting to do is to upset the flow of type just enough to show the new paragraph. And this at the moment just shows the space between, and I'm going to be switching that. I already have my document set up with all of the specs written out and not completely addressed, and also my assignment for advanced paragraph indicators and capitals called out up here on the top. So please make sure you have this. It's very important for me to see that and find that so I can know what the prompt is, especially now that we're going to be combining different things together. I want to make sure I'm giving that the proper attention. Make sure you're also calling out all the specifics in your colophon over here. So for this specifically, there's still just going to be one line calling out the typeface and the size, but in the ones in the future, there may be multiple. So at the moment, I am going to look to be doing a capitals for the whole first line of type here, which I'm just going to highlight. And then there is the quick link up here in your tools panel where if you just click that, it will do the all cap for you. And typically you don't want to use too many of these controls because you're like the small caps, you could be forcing a fake small cap. As long as your typeface has capitals worked into it, which most do, you can use that button as a shortcut. But you'll notice what happened actually is this didn't really just all cap the first line. It all capped it and then it took up more space and it pushed it beyond that. So I'm not happy with the way that looks at all. And I can now decide to make a few other changes. Maybe I just want to all cap the first few words or the whole first line, but I have to adjust where it breaks, or just the first word. And I think I'm going to stick with the first three. And in the case of my second paragraph here where I have a short word of the, I'm just going to count that as one because it's not taking up as much space visually. And also this is my chance as I'm going down to look for any errors. Just for example, this project's right here has been soft return down, which I don't want. I'm going to bring that back up. Looks like I have a couple hidden soft returns in here. This is a great example of why we don't want to use type from previous explorations because it could have some of these things hiding out in there. So I'm basically just going to go down and affect every, wrong button, and affect every paragraph with what I'm trying to do, which is the three first words in cap. And I'm just going to take a peek at a couple of extra things. I also have this space between set up in here, which we've done in Exploration Assignment 1. And I'm going to keep that because I don't think capping just these three words is enough. I like the way it looks, but it does need the extra space between, so I'm going to keep it. I'm also going to take a peek at any other errors in my type. I happen to have a lot of additional soft returns. And as a quick way to find them, you could go up into type, show hidden characters, and that will show you anything hidden going on. So a little pilcrow here to show where the paragraphs are, dots to show where the spaces are, and there's usually a little squiggly line that shows where a soft return might be. So I'll do it right here in front of Fancy, and that shows the line right there. So I've already gotten rid of them all. I'm going to turn that off because it's kind of annoying to look at. So fixing that also fixed what do I had hanging out here. I'm getting kind of an ugly rag here with these three lines creating, actually kind of these four lines creating an angle. Some here too, some here too. So this tells me overall my the way my typesetting is set up is not good enough globally. So I'm just going to go ahead and make an adjustment and see which way it's better. So I changed that to tracking 40 instead of a 30, and that's better. Not perfect, but I am going to move on. Don't forget about your footers, making sure they're in there, and if they're not following the exact same prompt, that's okay, but make sure if you're not doing all caps, for example, it does have the space between because there needs to be paragraph indicators in there as well, and obviously the type rules apply. And don't forget to have all of your superscripting done and anything else that needs to be adjusted in your document. All right, I'm going to move along to weight. Weight change, same thing. You can choose to just change the weight of the first three, the whole first line if you would like, or something different. I'm going to choose to do the whole paragraph. So I'm going to leave the first paragraph alone, and it is set in Archer Book, and I'm going to alternate paragraphs between book and bold. And because this is a great upset, I don't need to do anything else. So in this case, I don't have an extra space between set up in here because the bold to book is pretty noticeable. But going bold gave me some errors with a partial word widow here, which is pretty terrible. I'm just going to go ahead and double check that I have 30 points of tracking like it says I do. And I just fixed that because it wasn't in there. And now it's all set. So I don't need to go and fix that partial word widow anymore. So that's weight, or one example of a weight change. One more thing you can do with your advanced paragraph indicators is a typeface change. Same as the rest of them, except for this, you're going to change the actual typeface. So what I'm going to do in here is alternate between 8/12 Gotham and 9/13 Mrs. Eves. And I'm also going to look for any other issues, like this, superscripting is not done for number 1 and 2, so I have to fix that. Another example of why it's a challenge to work with fresh types. So those aren't too big of a deal. It's better than having hidden soft returns. So I fixed that. So for my alternate, I need to get my Mrs. Eves. And I am going to do Roman and 9/13. But before I do that, I just want to call out 8/12, the difference between 8/12 and Gotham and the difference between 8/12 and Mrs. Eves. She's set smaller and looser. So that is a really great example of how two typefaces can set very differently. So I'm going to bump it up a little bit. I do still want there to be some difference, but I'm bumping it up a little bit. And because I did that, I'm going to add a little bit of the extra leading back in. Don't necessarily need to have this much leading because it's a little different than what's going on up here. But I do like it because it upsets the flow of type a little bit more and shows the difference in the paragraphs. While I'm up here, I just noticed the space between the K, so I'm going to fix that. And I'm going to leave that paragraph alone, and I'm going to affect number 3 and put that Mrs. Eves as well. And also that is supposed to be 9/13. And I'll leave the last one alone. So I don't need to do anything else, I don't think, to this. The difference between the Gotham and the Mrs. Eves is great enough. If it was not looking like enough of an upset, I could choose to add something else, like an extent, or maybe I also want to add a bold to the Mrs. Eves lines just to give it a little bit more of a bump. So that's up to you when you're working, what typefaces you're working with, how do they look? Do you want to combine other things that you've learned? Go right ahead. Don't forget about your footers over here. I already have that called out, so that's why I'm not talking about that, but don't forget that with yours. And finally, you can have point size changes. So I'm going to be working with 8/12 Avenir and 10/14 Avenir. Same typeface, and this time we're just changing the point size. The reason why the leading is changed is because when you change the point size, you do need to compensate by changing the leading as well, because otherwise it'll look too smushed or too open. So I'm going to begin with the 8/12 and go into my I feel like I'm missing a paragraph in here. I think it is I have to go back one and figure out where. Yes, some of the first messages is the next paragraph. So I have no paragraph indicators in here. I can't find my paragraph. All right, so I'm going to go 10/14 Avenir. Alternate 10/14 Avenir. I'm going to check for any other errors. I am going to call this a widow because it's just A and page, so that does not count. And I've done nothing else, so I'm just going to bump that whole paragraph up to a 40 instead of a 30. That's as far as I'm able to go. It worked. I'm happy. Double check your footers. I'm happy with where those are. Not perfect, but I think this explains the basics of the assignment with capitals, weight, typeface change, and point size change.